Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. I'm Deb Lutz, also known as D-Lux, and I am here with you today on Saturday, January 14th for a nice little six-game main slate. And we will, since I'm going solo, no two brains are better than one, but we'll be providing lineups for Fanduel, Draftkings, and Yahoo. Sounds like there were some issues earlier today with the football lineups for Fanduel, but that's been resolved. So we'll be providing lineups both single entry and GPP across all three platforms. And as always, welcome to all of you in the channel, and look forward to your comments and any information that you want to provide me as we're going along, because as you know, we're heading into the locking hour, and lots more information to come on injuries, etc. So with that, let's get started. And first game up is a 7 o'clock Eastern game, Memphis versus Indiana. Nice big spread here, and this is one of those games where we need the information, because we've got a number of people either out or game time decision, or waiting on some of those changes. So for Memphis, we've got looks like Clark is trending towards playing right now. He is a game time decision, but likely to play. So that's going to have an impact on certainly on Steven Adams, as well as certainly on Xavier Tillman. And the other piece of information is that Brooks has just been ruled out, and so he is not going to be playing. And you also have Conchar out. So Conchar is typically the backup to Brooks, so that's going to put Zaire Williams into play, which unfortunately for me, because I had him sort of as a sneaky little play today, but now with him in the starting lineup, if that is the case, he's going to be much higher owned. But anyway, so breaking this game down, 239.5 total, Memphis by 8. So they are expecting it to be a pretty decent spread here with the injuries on Indiana. On the Indiana side of things, Halliburton, as we know, is still ruled out, and Miles Turner has been ruled out again. So no starting lineups as of yet. But here's what I like. On the Memphis side of things, I like Bain tonight more than I do Morant. I think McConnell will give Morant a little bit of trouble. And I really like Bain tonight going up against the rookie Nembhard. And I think he'll be seeing extra usage because Brooks is out. I also like Triple J. Again, relatively weak front court on Indiana, and I think that's going to benefit Jaren Jackson. I think he could clean up. And a lot of people are going towards Steven Adams. Wouldn't blame you. Probably going to be playing against a combination of Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith. And who knows, it could be a 20-rebound game night tonight for Adams. Although, like I said, with Clark being back, I think he'll play a fewer minutes. So keep that in your projections. With Brooks out, who do I like? I like Zaire Williams. A little bit of Aldama, but I prefer Williams. They're both priced about the same. And again, I think Desmond Bain is going to benefit. Over on the Indiana side, I'm all over McConnell again. Played him last night. It did well. He's going to continue to just get a lot of usage, particularly with Miles Turner out as well. So I like McConnell. We'll see if he starts. He didn't start last night, but did just as well off the bench. Nembhard, if Nembhard starts, I like him. If he starts at point guard, I like him. If McConnell is starting, I don't like him as much because he's just not going to get the usage. So keep an eye out on that. Buddy Hield in another good spot, particularly with the defensive-minded Dylan Brooks out. And, of course, you know, Isaiah Jackson had a really sweet night last night. And you needed him in your lineup. And I'd look to put him in again because he has not been priced up at all. Okay, so that takes us to the second game, also 7 o'clock game, Boston at Charlotte. This one's a 232.5, and 8-point spread with Boston pretty heavily favored. And in this game, we've got the same injuries as previous games with each of these teams, Jaylen Brown being out, as well as Danielle Gallinari for Boston. At one point, Malcolm Brogdon was questionable to play, but he is going to be playing. And then on the Charlotte side, you're still with Hayward and Oubre out, so nothing to change there. With Jaylen Brown out, that makes Tatum a very viable play, and he's in an attractive situation tonight against Charlotte. I like him a lot. His pricing hasn't really increased, but his usage will, so somebody to keep an eye on. Williams has played well, particularly with Brown out. I'm not a big Grant Williams fan, but he has been coming through, so somebody to keep in mind. I may actually go with Al Horford tonight. His price keeps getting lower. He will see extra usage with Brown out, so he could be a little bit of a sneaky under-owned play as opposed to the chalkier Marcus Smart or Derek White. Over on the Charlotte side, nobody's really that attracted to me despite the decent score in the game. LaMelo Ball just priced too high. Rozier just too inconsistent. And you've got, some good defense on the Boston side of things. A lot of centers tonight of interest, but if there weren't, I would take a flyer on Mason Plumlee. I think, the weakest part of Boston's defense right now is at the center position, although with Robert Williams back, it's gotten stronger. So I am probably not going to go with any Charlotte players tonight. So let's take a look in the chat. Hey, Josh, Crash, thanks for joining. You should be taking some time off here, since you don't have to do this podcast. But good to see you. And Doug L., great to see you as well. Indiana Biggs looking good. Yeah, definitely Isaiah Jackson. I know that Brissett was questionable at one point. I don't see him on the injury list any longer, so he's probably likely to play. Jalen Smith will get some minutes. Jalen Smith will probably be the lowest owned. Let's take a look and see actually on the sites what Jalen Smith's at, because so he might be a sneaky little GPP play because everyone's going to be so focused on Brissett and in particular Jackson, who had monster nights last night. And Jalen Smith's night wasn't bad. He hit about 5x. A little bit over 5x, so not bad at all. And let's take a look here. So on DK, we've got you got to go way down to 1.1% owned Jalen Smith at 4K. So that's a pretty nice little GPP play there. Over on the Fanduel site, let's see where he's resting there, because he won't start, but he will get some decent minutes off the bench. 5,500. That's a little bit rich. I would expect him to get about 24 to 26 points, fantasy points tonight. So I like him a lot more on DK than FanDuel. Continuing with our hellos, hey there to Travis Wyndham. How's it going tonight? And Saruji, any chance for a core for DK? Yeah, absolutely. We'll be throwing out a couple of cores on DK. We'll do a GPP core and a single entry core. So no worries, buddy. We got you covered. All right. So where are we at now? Heading on to our third game. Let's see. Atlanta at Toronto, 7:30 Eastern start. This one is expected to be about a 232 over-under and a 7-point spread. Again, a lot of these games have decent-sized spreads tonight with some clear favorites. So we'll see if they can stay close to drive more of these fantasy points. You've got Bogdanovich is actually questionable, which which is kind of new. Apparently he had a quad issue from last night because they did play last night. But so far they're thinking he has a decent chance to play. We'll see about that. That most impacts Murray and Hunter's numbers. On the Toronto side of things, right now we're not showing anyone on the injury list, so they are fully on board. Okay, so what do we think about this game? Well, a couple of things. Atlanta is on a back-to-back. Okongwu had a tremendous night last night. He's still fairly priced and not as overowned as you'd expect. Now, he is facing Toronto defense, which will be a lot sturdier than Indiana's last night. So I don't expect him to go off and have 60 fantasy points as he did in the last game, but still a solid play with Capella out and not really much of a backup there. Trae Young is attractive, in the game tonight, decently high over-under, and he really drives that team. But in terms of high-priced options, I've got a lot better, so I'm not super excited. I am interested in a couple of guys on the Toronto side. This is a this is a pace-up spot for Toronto, and so I really like Van Vliet, who's going against Trae Young, and Trae Young's not known for his defense. And Van Vliet, particularly on DK, is below 8,000, so I really like that option. I also like Scotty Barnes a lot tonight. He's been trending up. His pricing hasn't quite caught up yet, so those are my two favorite plays on the Toronto side. Okay, so heading on to the 8 o'clock game, which is Cleveland at Minnesota. 222 is the over-under, spread of 3.5. Surprisingly, they are predicting this one's going to stay close, despite the fact that Minnesota is still missing Karl-Anthony Towns, has a number of injuries, and is also on the second night of a back-to-back. Cleveland, Mitchell is questionable right now, so there's a good chance he's not going to play. But they've got some good depth and a lot of other guys to step up. So I am surprised that this one is shown to be close. I don't think it's going to stay that way. The other injuries, so the injuries overall, the typical Dean Wade and Dylan Windler out on Cleveland. And for Minnesota, you've got Towns and McLaughlin out, and Prince, Edwards, and Kyle Anderson all are questionable. So we need a lot more news there. Hopefully we'll get it before we have to lock. Not sure, though, if it's going to come. Edwards did play last night and had a great game, but maybe they're going to rest him on the back end of a back-to-back. So, I'd be careful about playing him. It makes Russell very attractive, particularly if he doesn't play. And I think Russell on DK or Fanduel is 6,800, which is super attractive. So my plays here and who I'm going to stay away from, I really like Garland, particularly if Mitchell doesn't play. Garland scored 50 real points the last time these two teams met. It's a great matchup, high-paced game. Russell is not a great defender, so I'm really high on Garland tonight. And, when you look at his usage or his ownership projections, here, I'll pull these up for you guys because I thought it was kind of interesting. Here, Garland. Come on. Where did it go? Disappeared on me. This is the wrong set of games. Hang on one sec. All right. So for some reason it's not updating for me. Looks like it's got last night's projections. So let's give it one more second. Yeah, now it's asking me to log back in. That's not cool. All right, sorry about this, guys, but we'll just log in real quickly and hopefully be back in business here. All right, there we go. Okay, so as I'm waiting for it to reload, Doug, playing Horford a lot. Yeah, me too. Oh, and you like Murray on FanDuel. Yeah, I'm not so sure. Murray's really been... boy, he just has not quite been, he's a great player, but he's not dependent on his shot, and Trae Young just seems to be stealing his thunder a bit. So tough to go to him at his pricing. Okay, so let's see what we really have now. So now we've got that cleared up. Cleveland, Minnesota, from an ownership standpoint. So Darius Garland is the top owned player, and he's at 10.7%, but not crazy versus some of these other ownership numbers. But he is number one owned on DraftKings, and on FanDuel, he is a little more expensive, I believe. He's at 7,900 and similar 10%, 10.7% ownership. So not bad at all from an ownership standpoint. The other guys that I like in this game, pull up here, who I've got. Levert is very interesting if Mitchell doesn't play. I go right to Levert if Mitchell is ruled out. He's only 5,100 on DraftKings and 5,800 on FanDuel, so I particularly like him on DraftKings. He's low ownership, but that ownership is going to shoot right up if Mitchell doesn't play. I also like Allen a lot. Allen, particularly on DraftKings, where he's only 6,000. I think that's a super attractive price point. And you've got Evan Mobley right behind him at 6,400 and similar ownership percentage. So I favor Allen on DraftKings. And on FanDuel, Allen is a little higher priced. He's 7,500, so people are staying away. Only 2.9% ownership, and there are a lot of great centers out there. I wouldn't totally shy away from him, but certainly more attractive on DraftKings. So on the other side of things for Minnesota, like I mentioned, I really like Russell tonight, particularly if Edwards is ruled out. But he's super attractive on FanDuel, where he's 6,800. Pricing tends to be higher on some of these guys on FanDuel, but at 6,800 versus 7,200 on DraftKings, I really like D'Angelo Russell. And depending on what happens with Anderson, I wouldn't mind getting a little Kyle Anderson, 5,400 on DraftKings. He's 6,200 on FanDuel, though. That's a little too high for me, but on DraftKings, wouldn't mind him if he plays. All right, and in terms of fading, like I said, I am going to fade Anthony Edwards. I'm also going to fade Gobert. I think, Cleveland's defense is pretty stout in the front court there. And, the only other guy I may be using as a fill-in would be Isaac Okoro on DK. He's 3,400. I found myself possibly needing like a GPP play at that level, so he'd be the guy that I would squeeze in there. All right. So again, folks, reach out if you have any questions on the chat as I'm going through all this. We are winding down here now with our last couple of games. We got Philadelphia, Utah, 9 p.m. Eastern start, 233.5 over. And you got Philadelphia with a 6.5 spread predicted to win. And Utah is on the second night of back-to-back, and unfortunately, Lauri Markkanen's come up with a questionable tag. So he is the main guy on their offense. He's got a left hip contusion, so we got to try and figure that one out. We'll put information in Discord because that's a really big one. They're very sort of injured as is. Rudy Gay is out, Kelly Olynyk, and Colin Sexton, so they're a little bit thin, and without Markkanen, they're really lacking a lot of offensive punch. So that's definitely something to watch out for. On the Philadelphia side, you have Tobias Harris, who is questionable, and George Niang questionable. So, Harris matters, but honestly, with Harden, Maxey, and Embiid in, they just, they're sitting pretty. I see Philadelphia handling this one pretty easily. So, who do I like in this game? I like Harden a lot against Utah's defense. I see Harden going for 50. I also see Embiid going for 50. So it's just a question of Embiid's a little bit pricier. It's a question of who you can fit in. I'm kind of torn. I won't play them both. It's probably gonna be site dependent for me, but I do like both those guys. Maxey hasn't really hit his stride yet since coming back, so I'm going to stay away from him. And not going to any of these bench guys, even if Harris sits. I don't know if you'll get a Tybal starting or possibly a Melton starting, but we'll have to wait and see if we can figure that out. I wouldn't mind going with Melton if he were to start, but Tybal is not a DFS player, not a guy to pick up for DFS. On the Utah side of things, Conley is back. He's going to play. Don't expect him to do too much, though, against Philly. Clarkson will do his usual, but nothing too exciting. Beasley has moved into the starting lineup, so he's one guy to watch. And again, if Markin is out in particular, Beasley is going to be their go-to from an offensive perspective. So he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. I do like him tonight. And then lastly, I'm a huge fan of Kessler. Even when Olynyk comes back, I think Kessler's going to take over that starting position. He blocks like crazy. I really like him overall. You know, it's not the best matchup against Philadelphia, but he's been playing a lot of minutes. He's a good value at the center position, so he's someone that I'm going to be eyeing in my lineup. And for the last game of the night, Dallas at Portland, 224.5 over/under, 1.5 point spread. So this is the tightest game of the night. At least it's forecasted to be that way. However, there's a good chance that Damian Lillard is not playing, which I would expect would change the makeup of that a bunch. You've got Little and Winslow who continue to be out for Portland, and Peyton, who's also questionable. On the Dallas side of things, there is a questionable tag on Christian Wood, and Finney Smith, Josh Green, and Maxi Kleber continue to be out. So real interesting to see what happens if Wood does not play and if Lillard doesn't play, excuse me. I do like Luka a lot in this game. He's really high priced, but he's been paying that off pretty much every game for the past few weeks. So I would definitely consider playing Luka. I'm not excited about some of the other guys. Hardaway gets Josh Hart defense, which I respect. Jeremy Grant getting Bullock defense. If Christian Wood sits, you know, you're going to have Powell getting some increased minutes, but he's not a great fantasy guy. So it may be Luka or bust for me on the Dallas side of things. Although Hardy's been getting a lot of play, so somebody to look out for. Sorry, guys. Hang on a sec. Okay. Now, Portland is interesting because with Lillard out, you've got to look for the offense from somewhere else. So you could look at Simon. I think he's interesting tonight. And I really like Nurkic as well. Centers tend to do pretty well against Dallas. And in particular, if Christian Wood is out, I am very high on Nurkic. So basically in this game, I'm looking at Luka and Nurkic. And if you want a really, really crazy GPP, go for Jabali McGee. All right, that is it. So thank you guys very much for joining me. On my way out, Doug, Luka looked to hurt anybody? He's going to put the hurting on Portland tonight, that's for sure. So anyway, before I choke to death here, I'm going to head out and go get lineups ready and post them over in Discord. So thank you everybody for joining. And Sergi, the core for DK, yep, that's going to show up on Discord in about 10 minutes. So keep a lookout there. And I thank you guys for joining, and good luck to everyone tonight. I think it's going to be a good night. I'm feeling it. So show those winners. Hopefully they come true, and then join, I think, Crash and Steve as they talk about NFL, and then I think you might even get Coach tomorrow for NBA. But join us tomorrow as we look to crush it in DFS.